There's one more topic I want to look at in our first unit on rhythm. And in order to introduce this topic, I want to take a look at a row of quarter notes. There are 12 quarter notes here. I'm going to perform these quarter notes for you. It's not going to be a very interesting performance, but it will give us something to start from. So here we go. Performing these 12 quarter notes. Ta, 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 ta. Now, I just performed pretty neutrally a line of all these quarter notes. But suppose we were to group these quarter notes into groups of 2. Or to count them 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Notice that when we do that, there's a little groove or a little rhythm or a little pattern that naturally emerges. It makes this line of quarter notes at least a little bit more interesting. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Notice there's a little swing to it. There's a little groove to it. There's a little emphasis on the first of those 2 in the groups of 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And I could replace that with, say, a group of 3. And let's actually try that and see how that sounds differently. So I'm going to go this time. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So let's see how that feels. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Notice there's a groove that's different from the 1, 2 groove that emerges when I start saying 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. There's a little bit of an emphasis on the 1. I could do the same thing by dividing this up into groups of 4. And let's try it. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see how that sounds. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's got its own distinctive feel. Again, still maybe not the most interesting thing in the world, but a little bit more interesting than just that sort of undifferentiated line of quarter notes that I started with. So this idea that we can group groups of notes into 2, into 3, into 4, really into any size groups, is known as meter. And the individual groups, say those groups of 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, are known as measures. So this first group of 1, 2 up here, that's the first measure. The second group of 1, 2, that's the second measure. This third is the third measure, fourth measure, fifth measure, and sixth measure. And the way that we show measures in musical notation is that we put a line going from the very top line of the staff to the very bottom like this. This is known as a bar line. It's known as a bar line because the word bar is a synonym, another word for measure. Measure and bar mean exactly the same thing. So every time I write a bar line, that indicates the start of a new measure. Like this. And I could do the same thing with my groups of 3. Let's try that. Let me erase these. And we'll try the same thing with a group of 3. So we will go, I will count out 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So now I'm going to put bar lines, not after the second quarter note, but after the third quarter note, and after the sixth quarter note, and after the ninth quarter note, and then after the last one. And I could do the same thing for our groupings in 4. If I get rid of these bar lines, and get rid of these numbers up here, now I'm going to do the same thing for groups of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I'll put a bar line. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then another bar line. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we have this bar line at the end. We also have a musical symbol that tells us exactly what the configuration of beats in a measure is going to be, and that is the symbol that is known as the time signature. And the time signature always sits over at the left end of the staff. I'm going to write a time signature here. If we're working with a clef, the time signature always goes after the clef. So I'd write, say, a treble clef here, and then immediately after a time signature. And the thing that we're going to worry about in time signatures, just for the moment, we'll worry about some more things later, but we're going to worry primarily about this top number, because this top number is going to tell us how many beats are in the measure. And in this time signature, which says 4/4, or we call 4/4 time, that tells us that there are going to be 4 beats in the measure. If we had grouped our measures into groups of 3, we would call that 3/4 time. And let me just so we're clear about that, let me actually do that. Get rid of our numbers up here. Get rid of our bar lines. So in 3/4 time, we'd go 1, 2, 3, bar line, 1, 2, 3, bar line, 1, 2, 3, bar line, and then 1, 2, 3, bar line. We could also do the same thing with our groups of 2, in which case we would have 2/4 time. And let me fix the bar lines now. So we have 1, 2, bar line, 1, 2, bar line, 1, 2, bar line, 1, 2, bar line, and 1, 2, bar line. Now there's a lot more that we have to learn about time signatures and rhythm. But if we start out for today with just those 3 time signatures, knowing those 3 time signatures or those 3 configurations of beats in a measure, 2/4, which means that we have 2 beats in every measure, 3/4, which means we have 3 beats in every measure, and 4/4, which means we have 4 beats in every measure. In a later video, in a later part of class, we'll talk about what this bottom number means, but that we will save for another day.